Today we're going to add a GPU to a computer. So the computer we're going to be adding a GPU to is an old Lenovo S20. We feel like it's still a worthy system for its particular use case. So we're going to take another stab at upgrading it. We have upgraded it in the past. So what we did when we initially purchased this computer is just add some more memory. From there, we ended up upgrading it to 24 gigabytes of memory. And later, we took out the Quadro, I believe it was a Quadro 4000 from NVIDIA, and we replaced that with GeForce GTX 960 2 gigabyte. Now, not a especially powerful card, but it served its purpose. Now, one thing I will say is that the Lenovo support will tell you that the GTX series or the RTX series are not supported by the S20 or the Lenovo S30. But we found that it worked just fine. So, you know, your mileage may vary. Just thought I'd throw that out there. What we also did is it had a pretty slow CPU. So we upgraded it to Xeon X5680. It's a 6-core, 12-thread processor. It's a pretty decent processor for its time. And we found that processor is very capable for most purposes. If your goal is gaming, this is not going to be a gaming system if you're playing any kind of AAA titles. Now, it's possible. We haven't tested it. We're not going to test it. But it may run some of the titles that don't require a lot of CPU power. But that's not what we're building this for. This is going to be for doing some light video rendering, graphics, and general computing. If you are looking for a really solid business computer that needs to do those things, a little bit of video, a little bit of OBS, streaming, things like that, this is a perfectly capable computer for a decent price, very solid. So today, though, we're just going to be installing a GPU. It's a pretty quick process, but I thought I would point out some of the things we've done and explain why we're upgrading it. So the 960 has served it very well. It's a decent old computer. If you're not trying to do games, then that video card is pretty decent. But we want to do a little bit more heavy lifting with the video editing and processing, using Handbrake and some things. And we found that in our other upgrades, giving it a little bit more memory and a little bit better card can save a lot of time. So what we're going to do today is we're going to be adding this card here. So let me just switch real quick. And there it is. It's a PNY 1060 6 gigabyte. Not a newer or more powerful card. That would not be advisable, even though you could probably run a decent card in this system. It'd be pointless. This is probably more than would be advisable if you were just doing gaming, because you'd probably become CPU bound. But for doing video editing and things like that, that is GPU based, then this will work. Now, not all video editors will take advantage of a GPU, so this may not apply to you. You would need a CPU, a better CPU to do it. But we're going to be using Corel's Video Studio, and it will take advantage of this. We've tested it in previous builds, as I mentioned, and it really helps. So we're also going to be using Affinity Designer, and Affinity Designer definitely runs better when you have more memory. So we'll be taking advantage of that. And we do use some of Paint Shop Pro also. Again, it's not a really heavy duty program, but sometimes when we're open like raw files and large images or batch processing and stuff, saves a little bit of time. So all in all, that's our goal. Handbrake, Video Studio from Corel, Paint Shop Pro, Affinity, some of these kinds of programs that really aren't that intensive, but can still benefit from a little bit better system. So we're going to put that in here, and it'll go pretty fast. So we're just going to talk this through a little bit about the system and install that card. So the Lenovo S20 has a toolless design. I can pull the cover off, no tools. I can also just pop this here out, and there are no screws holding the cards in. And I've never had any problems with that. This sits right down on top of them, really nice, really tight. Works great. So this is the old 960. So we're going to pop that up out of there. So what you want to do, just make sure you set that out of the way and make sure you release it. Don't just start pulling on a graphics card. You want to get down in here, and there's either a little lever, but usually it's a little tab that you can just kind of pull out, and then very gently start lifting it out, and there you go. Now you can see better what this looks like. So this has two PCIe X16 slots. So you could put two graphics cards in there, but there's not a lot of point in it. So we're not going to talk about that part. But what we did with the second graphics slot is, you can see here we have a SATA card. Now that allows us to add more drives to this system. And even though it's kind of limited in its format, if you like use one of the 5 1/4 bays as we have, and just put an adapter in there for a hard drive, or the 3.5-inch hard drive, that's what we did. And now we have 4 terabyte, 4 terabyte, 4 terabyte, and we have 2 SSDs. One of them runs the operating system. It's a pretty small SSD, but about the only thing on it is the operating system, so it's plenty. The second SSD is most of the programs, especially the larger programs, they all run off of the SSD. Now there's some debate, and in different use case scenarios you may see a bit of a performance increase. We feel like we're getting a little bit, and I wouldn't call it, significant, but it does allow us to separate everything, and so we keep most of the large programs on that, and then it just separates it. You can see the S20 has 6 memory slots. We put 4 gigabytes in each one of them. There are 8 gigabyte sticks available, but they're pretty expensive, and 24 gigabytes for our use case, and probably yours too, is plenty. If you're going to spend that much money and have that high of a requirement for your processing, you probably want a better system anyway. So I would definitely recommend just go ahead and get something a little bit better, like our S30 that we're recording this on. It has more memory, so yeah, I would do that. That's 32 gigabytes on that one, and that's plenty for our needs. So, or is it 64? I can't remember, but it's got 8 slots on the S30. So here we go. We've got that, and this is the CPU fan. This is a really good CPU. As I said, it's not like super powerful. It's not for gaming, but for our needs, this 6-core, 12-thread X5680 does a fine job. For lightweight kind of work like we're doing, you'll find it really does a good job. So let's pull out this PMY. We picked this up. It's been about 8 months in the midst of the whole CPU shortage, excessive prices thing. But actually, it's not much cheaper right now. Can probably get better deals on, you know, newer cards, but not much use in paying much for a new card when this older card is really a good match for this system, because this is about the best card. GTX 1060 6 GB. That's about the best card that you could possibly use effectively in this system. If you were gaming, my understanding from some research I did, it would quickly become CPU bound even with this card. But doing video editing where it's GPU sensitive, then it's not going to be the same situation. So it will make much more use of the card than in a gaming scenario. So if you're gaming, yeah, probably 964 GB instead of the 2 GB we were using, and that way you're not wasting your money. But if you're doing video editing, you could move up to the 3 GB 1060, and that would be okay. But the 6 GB 1060 just gives you, more processing, ability. So you're going to put it back in the slot. Just make sure you go easy with it. Make sure you get it lined up, especially here in the back. And just slide it in there real easy. Remember, never force it, because if you do, you may just burn up your whole motherboard, and we don't want that to happen. So nice and easy. You'll hear it click in there. After I hear that, I just give it a little light pushing. Just want to make sure it's not like rocking or something, which would mean it's probably not in there very good. We're going to connect our pins back up. The other one, the pins were on the opposite side, so we're just going to turn that around, get it back in there. So there we go. Make sure it clicks in also. So there it is, and that's about all there is to it. Just slide that back down. Always make sure everything is cable managed, reasonably. You don't want it catching fans or anything like that. So I see a cable here that got moved around a little bit while we were doing that. So let's just go ahead and just cable manage that a little bit and get it away from that front fan. Make sure everything's still seated good. So just the basic kind of things to do. The other thing I do sometimes when I'm opening a case up, it's very rare, but we forget sometimes, don't we? So just make sure your RAM's still seated good. Just do a quick, inspection. Just make sure everything seated good. Don't see anything that just like jumps out like, whoa, I didn't notice that. And then we can put her back together. So again, Lenovo's panels toolless. Just pop it in until it clicks, and that's all. So if you need a system at a nice budget price that will do some light video editing, and graphics programs, run your typical business apps. We have Office loaded on all of them, stuff like that. This is going to be a great system for you. As I said, we got 12 gigabytes worth of hard drives in here. We have 2 SSDs in here, dual Ethernets, yeah. So 2 Ethernets so that we can connect it to 2 different networks. So got a lot of goodness in here. They have 475 watt bronze power supplies, and that's very good. So it's really high quality, really good systems. We've had some of these for many years. They run flawlessly. We've never had any problems out of them. The only problem I ever had out of one of these Lenovo's S20s or S30s is some freakish thing when we moved an office one time and we plugged one of them in, and I don't know what happened, but the power supply just quit working. It's very bizarre. We bought a new power supply and it worked fine after that. Still working. So thank you for watching. If you like this video, share it, like it, subscribe to the channel. We got a lot more videos like this, and we'd like you to watch them and leave your comments. Thank you. Have a good day.